Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joey Harris YouTube channel. This is the first episode of What We're Watching. I am joined by Big TJ. How are you, sir?
Doing well, brother. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. And what we're watching is there are these television shows that are iconic or things that I've enjoyed or really want to enjoy. I made a list last year of all of these shows that are cultural phenomenons that I have never seen. And one of them, the one that we're going to start with, is The Sopranos. Now, I come from a small town and really love television, but there was not, I mean, that's all that there was. I didn't have, there
Right.
weren't all of these things. I watched television. And I was thinking about it last night, and there are what I call seminal moments in television history. You've got I Love Lucy, that kind of like that is what the modern sitcom became. You got the final episode of The Fugitive, where at the time most of the country is finally watching Dr. Richard Kimball finally catch up to the one-armed man and find out, and they, that he has been innocent all these years. You have the final episodes of MASH, um, Cheers, and Seinfeld, and I was thinking about um, a lot of NBC shows for some reason. This will all make sense in a minute, so I'm just rambling here, but I'm gonna try to land this airplane. I
Definitely.
remember in 1993, Brandon Tartikoff, the president of NBC, he's on the Today Show and is from the set of Cheers. They have at this point stopped recording the show, filming the show, but they're, well, Brandon, what are you going to do? There's only 6 episodes of Cheers left. It's the Today Show. It's on NBC. It's
Right.
all the same company.
Right.
They know that he's like, well, yeah, Cheers was big for us because it was. That's the tent pole of their Thursday night. But you think about it, they had just lost the Cosby Show a year before. They had
Right.
just lost Night Court the year before. They're also losing um, A Different World in '93. They're losing Cheers. He says, but we've got Seinfeld is very popular. That's going to be their new tent pole. Um, so we think we're going to do that. Over on the channel just a few clicks away, the fledgling Fox Broadcasting Network. This is no longer um, the place that put on Werewolf and the New Adventures of Beans Baxter in the early days. Now they've got Cops. They've got America's Most Wanted. They're about to have a little show that heavily influences Friends called Living Single. About to do it. They've got In Living Color. They've
Okay.
got Married with Children, who's hitting its stride. They're right in the middle of that golden age of Married with Children. They've also got a little show that's going to become another big phenomenon for them starting called The X Files.
Yeah.
NBC comes back with in the next year. They've still got Seinfeld. They launch Frasier, the spinoff of Cheers. They've got Friends coming, and they've got ER. All right. Fast forward 5 years. All right.
Right.
You got the Friends phenomenon. They're in the fourth ending their fourth season. Frasier's doing real well. They got must see TV. ER is playing it firmly at 10 o'clock. But Seinfeld's ending. That's their biggest show.
Right.
Things are changing in May of 1998. You don't have those water cooler shows really anymore. This is the era of they had something called VCR Plus, where you could like program your VCR like very intelligently. TV Guide had little numbers by it, and if you had a VCR Plus, you can put this little number in, make sure you had a fresh tape in, and it will record that show. You didn't have to worry about programming
Uh,
it and all of that. So people would be like, all right, I've got I'm watching this on Tuesday, I'm watching this on Wednesday, I'm watching this on Thursday, Friday, and all that. They just make sure that they put, they have the fresh tapes in there and the tape doesn't run out. And then they do what we now call binging on the weekends. They were really starting to get away from the water cooler shows. And we know that within the next few years, you got the advent of TiVo. You got the advent of all these DVR things. And so, now you've got your ratings is ratings plus 3 days and plus 7 days. That's how they're looking at the ratings. And everybody's thinking, we've got to rethink the way that we do TV, because the era of this, oh my goodness, back in the day in Dallas, who shot JR? The next day, they're talking, everybody's talking, who do you think? Do you think that JR is dead? Who do you think shot JR? And everybody's thinking, like, we'll still have big moments, but the era of the water cooler show is over. Go over to a few ways down the block. There's this little channel, pay channel called HBO. Now they had home box office, mainly for movies just getting out of theaters. So you pay for, I want to see Back to the Future. Oh, it's on HBO. I can pay to watch Back to the Future. I have HBO. Well, HBO had been doing series. They did First and 10. They did Dream On. They had Arliss. Yeah. Now in 1998, I believe Oz launches and Sex and the City launches. They both have had their first season by the time we reach January of 1999, and a little show called The Sopranos. Now, to me, trying to remember back, I'm a junior in college at the time. I don't think it was like it comes on that first Sunday and everybody's talking about it on Monday. But I think within a month, people are starting to catch on to this. And I'm sure at the time, I'd have to go back and look at that. I'm sure HBO is taking advantage of this and they're rerunning some of these shows and stuff like that, because I remember by the time we get to season 2, it was this phenomenon. Like, there is a radio show, I believe it is syndicated out of Charlotte, called Bob and Sherry. Mm-hmm. Now, Bob and Sherry is everywhere. My wife listens to Bob and Sherry up here in Maine. I remember listening to Bob and Sherry. I'm at this point senior in college. I'm in my last semester, and my advisor and other people higher up have realized Joey has gone through college, and we have all missed that he needs a PE class. And so they created one for me and another student. It was just she and I in the class. And so the way my schedule was, like, I had to do something or I had a class, and then I had this short window of time. I didn't want to go back to my room. So I would just go to the gym early and just hang out or whatever. And I had my Walkman and with the radio on it and my headphones. I'm listening to Bob and Sherry. And it gets to a point, I think it's the last 30 minutes of the show, whenever, like on Mondays, they say, if you don't want to be spoiled, we will see you tomorrow. But we're going to talk and spend the next 30 minutes. We're talking heavily about The Sopranos. So don't get upset with us. Don't call us. We're telling you now. Have a good day. We will see you tomorrow. Let's get into The Sopranos talk. Gotcha. And to me, who's not listening to this, I'm fascinated. I'm like, let me hear what The Sopranos is all about. And they go deep into it like that. But even though I had never, up until this past week, seen an episode of The Sopranos, I look at it as like I'm wearing glasses in the middle of a snowstorm. I can't see the entire picture, but of course there are some things that are getting through. It's been part of my act. I don't really do it anymore, but it was a part of my stand-up for years. And it's true that my next door neighbors growing up had a satellite dish and had HBO, loved The Sopranos. And I went back and looked now, I'm like, wonder how much they actually saw. They were both alive through the end of the 5th season. Now, that was like the last towards the last of their lives, so they may not have seen the fifth season, but I know for sure they saw the first through the fourth season. You're talking about people in their 70s and 80s watching The Sopranos. Loved The Sopranos. Did not like that they cursed all the time. And felt that, I think that they thought Tony was just hanging out at the strip club. Thinking back, and they wish that he didn't do that.
Gotcha.
Never mentioned anything about murder. I'm like, aren't these gangsters and stuff?
Right.
Because that was part of my act. I said, you never know how it is to see people in their 70s and 80s talking about big pussy getting whacked. So before I have seen a frame of this show, I know that there's a character named Big Pussy and that he's going to die eventually because he's going to get whacked. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know Big Pussy's getting whacked at some point, which makes it sad because like he's one of my favorite characters up to this point. Now I've seen, when we talked about this, you and I said, let's watch the first 2 episodes and then we'll talk about that and then figure out where we go from there. So let's get a little background on The Soprano. We're introduced to the DeMeo crime family. Is it Capo? Capo, Tony Soprano and his family, as well as his troubled relationship with his mother, Livia. This is from Wikipedia, folks. Also troubled is his relationship with his Uncle Junior, who becomes locked in a power struggle with Tony. Tony also begins therapy sessions with Dr. Melfi after his panic attacks become more frequent. So that's how we start. And I remember they kind of framed this as, think about The Godfather or Goodfellas if the main character starts going to therapy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get that. Although it's not really like, they don't necessarily frame it in every episode like that. But so we start off and down to Tony Soprano, a capo in the DeMeo crime family, begins therapy with Dr. Jennifer Melfi after having anxiety attacks. And we start out, and Tony talks about his ducks. And Tony is crazy for his ducks that have come and started around his pool, and he has something built for them to get into the pool, get
them a ramp.
out of the pool. He built them a ramp, and he gets in there with them in his robe, so he can hang out. Him and those ducks. And my family, I have to say this, there was 2 things in this first episode that remind me so much of my family growing up. Not that my family is the mob or in the mob or have anything to do with the mob. I'm not saying that. Both of my parents, my dad's parents, my dad's father passed away in June before he was born in October. So he never knew his father. Okay. And his mother passed away the year before I was born. So I never knew any of my father's parents. My mother's mother passed away in 1986. My grandfather passed away in 2003. I talked about my neighbors. They were like grandparents to me. They both passed away in 2004. But that being said, my parents both come from families that have a large number of children. So I have a lot of great aunts and uncles, had a lot growing up. I'm talking about, we were in the 30 and 40 range.
Gotcha.
And so we would go and see them. My father's, I need to stop by and see Aunt so-and-so and Uncle so-and-so about something. So he would come by mainly to check on them.
Right.
And it was like Tony going to visit his mother, especially if have you eaten? Come in, sit down. I'll fix you something. Fix yourself something. It's all the
had
time.
lunch already, and she still said, "Eat your food."
You can't eat. You're wasting away.
You're wasting away.
That is. I'm like, oh man, it's like they had a camera in my life. You know, you want some candy? I'm not getting out of there without doing something. So
Doing
thankfully,
something.
yeah, I'm getting a little something. And my aunt and uncle now are like Tony with those ducks. They have separate of them. My aunt in the morning goes and feeds her squirrels, and my uncle at night makes to make sure that his fox is fed.
So,
So I go and visit them. It's like I'm visiting the zoo.
nice.
So he talks about with Dr. Melfi the business that he's in,
Waste
which as
management.
we know is waste management.
Yeah.
But Dr. Melfi knows what's going on. And she's like, hold on, let me tell you about what attorney, like what patient privilege is, doctor patient privilege is. There are certain things I cannot keep to myself. And so he's like, so I'm traveling with my nephew Christopher, and we see a guy. So we have coffee.
Have coffee. It's a very creative way of explaining, because obviously while he's so eloquently narrating the story, we're seeing in real time what they're actually doing, and it's driving a man down in the car. So good times.
Right. Who later on they talk into, look, you owe this money. You either pay this money, which we know you can't do,
right,
or you enter into this agreement with us. You will put in fake
MRIs.
MRIs and stuff to all of these non-existent companies and stuff, and then we'll pocket the money. He has no choice but to agree. So it was a enlightening coffee, I guess we could call it. We are also introduced to Tony's family,
Yes.
his wife and his two children on the day of his son's birthday. He later has to postpone his son's birthday party, and then we find that the ducks have left, which makes him very sad, and they postpone it because he has this panic attack.
Passes out.
I've had one panic attack in my life, an anxiety attack, and I thought I was having a heart attack. It's something
They
else.
suck. I've
Yeah.
had those. They are no fun.
Right. So I'm like, Tony, I'm totally with you. I don't necessarily agree with everything that you do, but I am totally with you on that. And then Dr. Melfi tries to get him to talk about his mother and all that. And it's one of those things like, you can't say anything bad about your mother, He wasn't raised that way. Although he does admit, like, since my father died, all of a sudden he's a saint.
Yeah.
Which he was not when he was alive. That she was like, why you never do any, you treat me horribly and all of that. She's on the father. He passes away. The man was a saint.
He was a saint. He was a saint. I mean, and the same thing, if you notice, when Tony speaks about his mother to Dr. Melfi, he'll give her insight to who his mother really is. But whenever she picks up on those clues and then spits those same things back at him, he defends his mom. Oh, she's just a sweetie pie. Right. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
And so, there's another thing that I did not remember, and it was not quite the same thing, but I also remember this growing up, going to visit my great aunts and uncles. They would do strange things like his mother. Somebody called here after dark last night, so I didn't pick up the phone. But my dad would never like question it like Tony did. He's like, Mom, I'm not understanding this. See, night, that's a vision thing. The telephone is auditory.
Auditory. What time it is outside doesn't really matter.
And she's like, why are you talking to me?
What?
She's not getting it.
No, just eat your food.
Yeah.
Just eat your food.
Yeah. We are also introduced to Uncle Junior, um,
His
and
father's
as
brother.
his father's brother, as well as, like I talked about, his mom, who, if I'm coming, you need to come by and pick me up. If I'm coming to the party, like, Ma, you drive. Like, it's not that far, but no, I need to. And as we
You
get
know
towards
I
the end
don't drive when they're predicting rain.
right, right. And so we're going to go back and forth um, to lot of different places. But you get to the end, Uncle Junior comes by, picks up his sister-in-law,
Yeah.
and is doing some smack talk about Tony. And she's looking away, and you see the small. It's very subtle, but the smallest appearance of a smile on her face. And you can agree, you can back me up on this. I finished that episode. I immediately texted you. I said, I just finished the pilot, and Uncle Junior's doing Tony wrong. And you're
Uncle
like, big
Junior's in
time
some
fact.
mess. Big time facts.
But that's what I feel like. I feel like Tony is just trying to get a hold on his life. Like, I don't feel like he's a bad person. I feel like he does bad things. But I feel like he's surrounded by people who are just straight up not great people. And it's like, it's like, why can't we take over the world? Oh, the inability to get good help. And that's what I feel like Tony's like. He's like, we could be firing on all cylinders, but I got to deal with these idiots.
It's because I mean, and obviously, just to give background for everybody, I mean, I've seen the show, I've been a big fan of the show, so I know what's coming, but I'm looking at it through the eyes of somebody who's only seen episode 1 and 2, So at this point, we don't know too much about Tony's uh, true, driving forces. What I can say is that it seems like he has an extreme love for the way things used to be. He talks about the Gary Cooper, the strong, silent types. While he's sitting down in therapy, and in the process of being in therapy, he's talking about these ducks. He talks about his nephew Christopher with some disdain about how he's has all this potential, but doesn't seem like he wants to work. So to me, and I'm looking at societal, I'm like, okay, this is that baby boomer generation versus the millennial. You got Christopher's coming up as the millennial and changing the thing. He's got a car that he can't afford, blah blah blah. You know, um, Tony's trying to hold on to. He said it. I mean, he was born in the wrong generation. He was born at the wrong time. But his dad never reached his full potential. So he's got all these things, that he's trying to juggle while also being the best father that he knows how to be. I mean, it's he's a very rich character. But if you can take anything from episode 1, that relationship with Dr. Melfi is very important. Played by Lorraine Bracco. Shouts out to Goodfellas, man. I mean, like, if you've seen this show now, I mean, if you watch Goodfellas, there's a lot of people. Chris Maltasanti, aka Spider. I mean, like,
Right.
they've got so many people from this film that were in Goodfellas. So yeah, great choice for our first show to watch together.
Absolutely. And I'd forgotten about it because they pack so much into each of these episodes. There's no like filler, like, oh, we're just going to do the throwaway thing. Um, Uncle Junior wants to do a hit at Tony's friend's restaurant. And they're like, that's a bad idea. We
Artie
should not do
Bucco.
that. Artie Bucco. And so Tony's like, let's just close down the restaurant. Here, Artie, they got me some tickets. Artie's
Toss me
wife
some tickets.
wants to have nothing to do with that.
Nothing. Because she knows who Tony is.
Right. She's like, give those tickets. You're going to give those tickets back. And I'm like, You know who Tony is. that's what I'm not. That's why I'm not getting it. I'm like, uh, give those tickets back because you know who Tony is. Why are you giving the
But you
tickets
know who
back?
to.
But you know who Tony is.
Right.
But that, we find out that there's more than one way to skin a cat, and so we just take care of it. He gets the insurance money. We're just gonna blow up his restaurant.
We're just gonna blow up his restaurant.
What was it, like a faulty dishwasher or something like that?
The oven. The oven.
The
Yeah.
oven was
Bad
faulty.
wiring.
Bad wiring. It gets you every time.
This oven's been working every day for years. And all of a sudden it's blowing something up, man. I mean, like, come on.
He'll get
But
the insurance money.
to your point where you say Tony is a good guy, he just does bad things. He could have went that route early. That could have been his first, go to, or he couldn't have cared because it's not him. That is a place that he likes to it's a delicatessen he likes to frequent, but he didn't have to cover for Artie. He could have let his uncle, off Big Pussy and it wouldn't have been a problem.
Right.
But his first response was to try and get the place closed by sending his friend on a trip so that it couldn't be done. And then once he realized, okay, I have no choice, let's set the place ablaze.
See, I think that they were trying to throw me off. And this is me realizing that Big Pussy eventually gets whacked. I thought at first it was that somebody confused him with Little Pussy, who that they were. I'm like, oh, that's how it's going to do. But I'm like, wait, I'm trying to think. I'm like, that makes it too obvious. But maybe sometimes obvious is the way to go. I'm trying not to spoil myself. Like I said, folks, if you unless you were under a rock or in a coma for the last 20 years, you know a lot of this. The
Okay.
day after the finale of The Sopranos, there was nobody who wasn't talking about that last episode and the last scene of the last episode and what it all means and all that. So I know that's coming. I'm trying to enjoy the journey.
I get it. I
It's
get
like
it.
we're in New York now. We're traveling to California. I know what's happening in California, and now I've been introduced to New York. I'm trying to enjoy the journey along the way, knowing that there are some sightseeing things that are going to pop up that I'm going to know about, but I'm trying not to let it to ruin it for me. But yeah, then you get into episode 2, which I believe is called 46 Long.
Yes.
Which I didn't know what it meant until I realized, no, let's just keep hijacking trucks that, oh, by the way, Uncle Junior owns or has a piece of.
Has a piece of it, yeah.
At first, it's DVD players, which at the time I totally get it.
Right. I imagine because at first I thought they were Blu-rays, but I was like, no, they're not Blu-rays. These are just DVDs back in the late 1990s. So yeah, DVD players.
And I think it was the man. I'm trying not to mention personal names. The man who was the director of housing when you went to the university that we both went to. He was a resident director there when I was there, and then became the director of housing my last semester there. That last year I was there, 99 and 2000, he was the grand prize winner of like a Phillips or JVC giveaway. He's like, I wasn't even he's like, he bought something and was like, here, fill this out and send it in. They sent him, I think, $3,000 worth of stuff, a video camera, including a DVD player, an overhead projector, and all of that. So he had the first DVD player that I knew of. One of my fellow RAs had the second one because he got it with his laptop that he bought.
Gotcha.
But that's around that time period, and I'm like, yeah, those things were big. Everybody's like, hey, let's get one.
True.
And so then Tony gets called and finds out, and so now Christopher, you got to make amends. Was it 15 that he needs?
It was 15 that he needed to pay. That's what they settled on because now we've been introduced to Lil Carmine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're getting a bigger view of the family now, because now that Christopher, and I think his friend, Brandon, now that they've ripped off
Brandon.
Junior's trucks, Junior can't just go to Tony, and squash it, and he can't just go after Christopher and Brandon because they're on Tony's crew. So now
Right.
he has to go to the upper management. One of a family member of one of the five families that is over their crew in Jersey, to kind of to settle it out. And that's when again we get you know Carmine is the dad, little Carmine. Oh my gosh, I'm mixing them up. I just mixed them up. My bad. My
That's all
bad.
right. Now, I totally get it. You need like a scorecard and
Big
all of
facts.
that. I am like loving it. I'm loving the characters and all that. It throws me off every time I see Steven Van Zandt because I'm expecting like skinny Steven Van Zandt with the bandana and all that,
Right.
playing on Dancing in the Dark over up with Courtney Cox and Bruce Springsteen,
Yep.
not knowing that now it's like 15, 16 years later, he's
And that's
got some
still,
flesh on him and the wig, or they did it say, I think it's a wig and
yeah,
all that. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, because I knew that he was in the show, and I'm like, when are we going to see him? And I'm like,
still.
wait, it's Silvio. Yeah.
Yep. So
But
yeah.
to get back to like again, like going back to the pilot, Christopher takes out the son of a man who's trying to horn his way into the waste management business, and then he and Big Pussy get rid of the body, and he Christopher misquotes a scene from The Godfather, and Big
Yeah.
Pussy has to correct him. He's like, no, it's Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes, and he's having to explain like what that
What
means.
it means.
And going into that, going into the second episode, my favorite storyline from the second episode, AJ's teacher's car gets stolen.
Yeah.
Who owns a shop? Big Pussy. So Big Pussy and Paulie Walnuts, they're finding this car. I love that. I'm like, if I could have had an entire episode
Of
of
the
of
just
just
those
of
two.
just
Yeah.
those two trying to find the thing, going into all of these coffee places, and Big Pussy's like, I'll have an espresso. He's like, do you sell just coffee? He's
Just
like, this
coffee.
is our thing. And he's getting pissed. He's like,
Yes.
that
They're still in our culture.
espresso was out. They're stealing all
Still in the
stuff.
culture.
And so they're going to the different branches. He's like, because I heard he's like, I don't forgot how many branches that they have, but there's more than one branch. He's
Oh
like, all
yeah.
right, we got to go visit all of them.
Gotta hit them
He
all.
goes, are you still on this about them stealing our thing? But he just slides
He's
that press
pocketing. He got that single
on his
press
way
though.
out.
Yeah, he did. Those two. I mean, and to think of how hilarious Pussy was whenever he goes. He's like, a friend of mine, found this money clip of one of the guys who works here, and he pulls out this stupid wad of cash. And you have to know, like, if you've been in any kind of food service, you're not walking around with a wad of cash.
But they don't know that. They don't know that.
Jesus. She was like, that belongs to somebody who works here? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Let me just get your
I
order
don't
so I
know.
can get you through.
By the time that they finally get to the guy, they're not the smartest people either. I
No.
want my lawyer. We're not the cops. This
We
is
ain't the
Johnny
cops.
Cochran, right? Talk to Johnny Cochran.
Shouts out to a younger Mike Epps, getting his
Yes.
opportunity to cut into the Sopranos there. And another, I guess, cameo for me, because I'm a big fan of The Wire. Earlier in that episode, or when Brandon does that job without Christopher, because Christopher has finally had some sense spoken into him by Tony. One of the
Right.
gentlemen that helps Brandon boost that truck, actually the gentleman who gets in and tries to drive, whose gun goes off, That's one Bodie Broaddus from The Wire. So yeah, it was a great episode.
Gun slips out of his hands.
My
It
God.
goes off, and everybody's like, "What?" And then all of a sudden, the guy just falls.
Powerful. Oh man, Mike Epps, Johnny.
So they go, and the car is just chopped. And he
It's
goes,
done.
"Why am I look?" He goes, "Why does that car have the plates that I'm looking at all these times?" All right, here's what we're going to do.
Strip that thing down, and you have to laugh at the fact when the teacher gets the car back. And all the kids are there. Tony, little Anthony is like, "Oh, my dad's a
My
hero."
dad's a hero. It's
When the
got like
teacher,
blood still on the.
right, that's what I'm saying. The teacher opens the trunk, and the other teacher's like, "Oh, it's different colors." Did you have to say that? It's obvious. This was a gold car. But no, someone painted it red. Like, and yes, it still had blood on the truck, man. So I'm just like, yo,
My
that
father's
was
a hero.
right. We didn't know. That other teacher that felt the need to point out that it was different colors, she hated that guy. She hated because he had been playing the sympathy card because his car got stolen all week and her cat had died the week before, but nobody cared about her anymore. They were only worried about this guy getting his car stolen. So now that it's returned, she's like, yeah, now back to me and my cat. It's two
There
different
is
colors.
there is one in every crowd.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like everybody else, like even if you don't know, on some level, you're like, look, I got a car back, and I got keys, and it's got my plates on it. I'm
Just
not
got
gonna
my
look
place
too.
on it.
I'm not because when she was going through school herself, it was the end of the week. It was a Friday. All right, you'd have made it almost to the end of class. You got like 3 minutes left of class. We are just running out the clock, as a paraphrase Stanley from The Office. This is a run out the clock
Run
situation.
out the clock situation.
She raised her hand. Teacher, you forgot to collect the homework.
She's that one.
That was her. That was her.
She's
And
that
she's like,
one.
now I've got to become a teacher, and I got to do the same thing too. Because nobody likes her. Nobody likes her.
Nobody likes her.
There's one in every crowd. Going back, the inability to get good help. You know that
There
she
you
is on
go.
there. But you brought it up earlier. Let's talk about Christopher and Brandon. Brandon's one of those people who always is building somebody else up. Oh, he did you wrong. You need to go get that. And instead of saying like, hey, or say, hey, let's go build up something together. Let's bring in this new thing to make them no, they're not giving you your thing. Don't listen to what he Tony is trying to help him. He's like, look,
Right.
this is you messed up, but I can get you back. It's gonna cost you this amount of money, you know, and all of that.
After Tony got his cut.
After Tony got his cut. Well, yeah. I mean,
um, I think at this point, because I mean, we even hear Tony speaking with Christopher. He says he doesn't necessarily care for Brandon because he knows Brandon has a history with methamphetamine, and he doesn't want Chris hanging out with this guy. He knows how delicate his nephew is.
mm-hmm.
He knows how delicate he is, so he doesn't want him hanging out with this guy too much because he recognizes that he's a bad influence. And you just pointed it out, being that instigator, that toxic person, you know, uh, he took advice that Tony gave him. And here's the thing, Brendan wasn't even around for the advice that Tony gave because Tony had already kicked Brendan out of the room because
Mm-hmm.
Brendan didn't know when to shut the hell up. So, you know, Brendan's getting kicked out of the room. Tony gives Christopher legitimate advice, but Brendan wasn't there for it. So when Brendan sees Christopher again, he's, oh, that they're crapping on us. They're not going to give us our shot. He's instigating him to do toxic stuff. And fortunately, we see Chris decide not to go on that next hit, but it still reflects poorly on him because Brandon technically is working with him. He's a part of his
Right,
crew.
right. Um, that's when he made the cancer chemo joke, and he's like,
Yep.
get out, get
Get
out.
out. Gotta go.
And Brandon like you start to see at least a little bit. This is the way I took it. At least a little bit. It's starting to sink in a little bit to Christopher because Brandon's like, "Why haven't you been made yet?" And he's like, "The books are closed." And Brandon's like, "No, no." He's just telling you that. He's like, "No, believe me,
They're
the
close.
books are closed, and here's why."
Right.
Yeah.
Because all these people are talking, and that goes, if that is something that I think should get people excited about getting into the series. You have Tony as an individual talking about what's wrong with the family, what's wrong with their community is that people take Henry Hill talking about Goodfellas and turn state witness. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they're ruining the culture. But he is compartmentalizing himself enough to be able to have conversations with Dr. Melfi and it not be a deterrent from what he does with his business. Again, we're only focused on the first two episodes. You know, he's talking, you know, but he even knows that he doesn't want anybody to know that he's going to therapy. You
Right.
know, that you know, he doesn't want anybody to know that because in his line of work, you know, loose lips sink ships. So if he's
Mm-hmm.
talking to a therapist, what's next? You know, so as we're going forward, I'm interested to see how that dynamic plays out with regards to people knowing, you know, and then Tony's comfort level with people knowing about that.
You raise a good point, because like his when he has the dinner with his wife and he tells her, "I'm going to see somebody and I'm on this
Yep.
medicine," she is like, "Oh my god, that is
Right.
fantastic," because she was prepared for like, I'm seeing somebody else, or I'm like, I feel like she knows what's going on, but she was like, "Hey, as long as he doesn't mention it." And now I thought she was feeling like, "Oh, he's about to tell me some heavy stuff," but instead it was like, "Oh, well,
I
there's
think she was
this."
expecting a pregnancy. I think she honestly, I think she was expecting pregnancy because she
Yeah.
had the glass in her hand, and he's like, "Why do you have the glass?" And it's like, "I've got this ready to throw in your face." Like she's
Right.
ready, you know.
Right.
But also take, if you remember, this is now after Tony, you know, has had the spell at the barbecue and has taken the MRI, and she's told him the difference between you and I is that you're going to go to hell when you die. You know, so this is she's already said that to him, and now we're in episode two when they're having the meal and he's explaining to her that he's in therapy now. Like it's that dynamic is charged. It's charged
Right.
because she knows what he does. She even made reference to it. Are you coming to your son's birthday party? And he's like, yeah, I'm getting off work early. She's like, I'm not talking about work. You know,
Yeah.
so so she recognizes what he does, and then obviously we got to see Tony on the Stugotz with his JFK hat and the whole thing and everything. So
Right. So see, I thought that when she was saying this again, not knowing every little thing, I thought that he had a girlfriend somewhere and she was aware of it, but like I was not talking, and he may, and we just haven't gotten to it yet. But again, if so, I'll wait to see that out. But I want to go back, and because you mentioned some things that I thought were really important towards the end of episode one, you were talking about the Henry Hill thing.
yeah,
Christopher gets the, hey, somebody says that I can write my life
I can play
story and makes
myself.
I can play myself,
Play
and
myself.
like, it's the wrong thing to say to Tony, like,
Right.
because he talked about it with Dr. Melfi. People used to say, hey, if you got caught, you did your time. Everybody realized that, hey, you got caught, we're sorry, we'll take care of your family, go do your time, because nobody squealed.
Right.
But now it's different because you have to think about it. If you think that, if you look at it as if these were real people, this
Mhm.
is Jersey. They know the New York crime family. They
Right.
know all these people for real. And so they look at that is a personal affront to them. This is not just that, like, hey, you don't do this,
Right.
and all of that. And also the relationship, I don't know what it is yet. Again, I don't want to speculate. The relationship that Tony's wife has with that priest, like they're just talking about like they're watching the what were those
They,
um
they were watching movies on DVD.
not it
Um,
wasn't DVD though, it was the big disc.
the what is that called?
I'm
Laserdisc.
they were watching it on Laserdisc,
Laserdisc. Yeah.
and he's talking about Tony likes the second one better than Godfather one. He likes it when they go back to Italy and all of that. What's he think about Goodfellas and all of that? She hears a sound. All of a sudden, that assault rifle comes out. I'm like, did she have that under a cushion? Where did that assault rifle? And he's like, whoa, what's going on here? All right, I guess this is what we're doing. He goes outside, and Miss Meadow is trying to
Meadow.
sneak back in.
Yeah, and I realize now it was Laserdisc because this is still in episode 1. He didn't get the
One, he
DVD
hadn't gotten his
player
DVD player yet.
until episode 2. So, um, introduction of Meadow, man, and I'm glad we get to talk about her character, bro, because I feel like she's smarter than what they give her credit for. Because, even with some of the side remarks that she makes with regards to her mom saying, well, you can't go to Aspen now with Hunter Scangarello, or I think that's her last name, Scagarello. It ends with an O.
Yeah,
Um, so she can't go to Aspen anymore, and Carmela is telling her she needs to be, she needs to do what she's supposed to. She needs to follow the rules that have been set for her. And Meadow makes a side remark and kind of scoffs at it, and I think it's got to be because she knows what Dad is doing. Like she has to, I mean, because AJ's turning 13. I think Meadow at this point is 16 years old.
I think so. Yeah,
So it's almost impossible for her not to know. And I can get the hypocrisy if you're a 16-year-old, your parent is telling you, hey, you need to listen to your, you need got, be in by curfew, don't no missing class, make straight A's, and then you know what your dad does. I mean that's a thing. But even Anthony Jr. is the typical. To me, Anthony Jr. is what they expected because Anthony Jr. is oblivious to it. He's oblivious to it. He knows what he can get away with. Which is why he said no effing ZD when he found out Grandma wasn't coming. And again, all they did was, hey,
right.
I wouldn't have dared have said that on my 13th birthday. But the way that they raise the children, even seems to be a little different because it seems like Anthony Jr. has a little bit more of a leash than Meadow does, and that again, that's more rich material for us to look into as we go on.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up because I had not even thought about like I thought about it but didn't click until you said something. There's that she sneaks back in. But this is the same daughter who um finally tells her mother she doesn't want to do the tea
Right.
with her anymore. So mom's like mad at her, and so you don't come to my game. And she says that to her dad. Oh, she's mad at me, so she's not going to come and support me. And then the subtle thing, I caught it because I was thinking the same thing, and she like voiced my thoughts. At the end of episode 2, he's looking out at the pool. And I'm like, he's missing those ducks.
He's
And
missing those.
she walks by and says that exact same thing. And I'm like, this girl is smart.
She's smart.
She knows what's going on. She may not have all the pieces yet together, but if it's a jigsaw puzzle, she's got that frame already done, and she has separated the colors, and it's not going to take her long to just start putting things together. But she is smart.
So far, what I've recognized, just putting the spotlight on Tony for a second. So far, what I've recognized with regards to his panic attacks, we noticed the ducks, right? I'm thinking that it's stuff that he has no control over is what triggers him. So you look at the ducks are growing up, they're flying away, they're not coming back. He thinks about his family, they're growing up. This is his son's 13th birthday. He has no control over that family. Like they're going to age up, they're going to move out of the house. That's what's going to happen. Same the ducks, they're trying to fly. The kids, they're trying to fly. Like he was so excited.
Yeah.
And then another time that we see him pass out is when he's with his mother at the retirement community,
Yeah.
and she's starting to get agitated, and he can't control her. When he's trying to get her attention, trying to get her to stop. Ma, ma, you hear him saying, ma, he sounds like a child, and then boom, he goes down. So
And Dr. Melfi tells him, like, I know you love your mother. This has got nothing to do with that, you
nothing to do with
know? And she may, I heard the same thing. I was listening to a audio book. I finished it up over Christmas. If you're doing the right thing, sometimes people may hate you for that. You still have to do it. And so that'll be the last thing that we talk about. But you're right. He's seeing his family starting to fly, and he knows that it's. I mean, you can know that it's going to happen and still hate it that it's happening. I get that. I don't have children, but I can see that. Um, and so he's like, I got these ducks. Maybe but then the ducks fly
That's
and all
fine.
of that. At the same time, he's being the good son.
Right.
He's got sisters, but they
They
cut
doing
them
their
out
own thing.
they're gone a long
They,
time ago.
yep,
But
they
he's
were
going to be
smart.
the good. He's going to be the good son.
Right.
All right. And he knows, he gets the helper. Helper doesn't stay
Mm-mm.
for long because you can only imagine what. But he's like,
Bro,
he's
she
on the
had to be.
he's on the phone with mom and all that, and she's like, I got to go take care of the mushroom because I'm like on the couch like, you need to take care of whatever's behind you because I can see it.
Right.
And she's like, hold on, I got to take care of the mushroom. What is that? What are they doing over there? And then like,
Oh no!
Ma, hang the phone up, get the thing. I put it on there. What should I do? He's like,
Oh no! She just kept going back. Oh God, how I live.
it's starting to blacken the wall. I don't need a play-by-play, Ma. So
Oh my
he's like,
God.
honey, can you go? Mom's house is on fire. I called and all that. And so he needs to do something. But then he's like, I'm proud of her. She goes out. She did the people who can't no longer go out. She takes them out to where they need to go. She's dropping her friend off, and her friend's like, my paper. She's like, what is happening with the? I thought she was going back into the car coming around the corner behind her.
God, no, that would have been
And no,
too
she
clean.
did not. She
That would have
put
been
that
too
joker
clean.
in drive, broke her wrist, slight concussion.
Broke her hip.
No, 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 no. Her mom broke her
Oh, her
wrist,
mom, yeah, broke
slight,
her mid. Yeah,
slight concussion. And
yeah,
Dr. Melton's like, what about the other woman? Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Done.
And that's you're done, you know.
It to put a bow, I guess, on the first two episodes. I think if you listen to Tony's words as he's we the episode one, the pilot opens up with Tony waiting to go into Dr. Melfi's office, and he is introducing us to the cast and the crew. He's introducing us to the players, and he says, "I feel like I got into this business at the end. Like everything is ending. And I'm like, okay, so." He's got all this stuff that he's trying to juggle. He's still, again, like you said, he wants to be the good son. He wants to be the best boss that he can be without bringing too much attention onto himself as the boss, because when Brandon would mention him as the Kimosabi, it pisses Tony off.
It
Like, don't
does.
call me the boss. Um, So, like I say, I know what I know, but again, looking at it with just the episodes that we have, I'm really excited to see what's coming because, this juggling act, we all know in our own lives, you can only juggle so much, and when I'm just talking about something as a general 9 to 5, he's a head of an organized crime ring, I'm pretty sure, he's got a little bit more weight. So, yeah, this is going to be great, man. I'm looking forward to diving and dissecting more of this with you.
All right, before we go, how do you want to do it 2 at a time? Do you think we can take more? I was ready to go on to episode 3 and beyond, but I'm like, we said the first 2. I didn't want to get ahead of myself. So,
Hey, man, however you want to do it, bro. I'm into it, man. I'm assuming you're going to edit this part out. So yeah, however you want to do it, I'm down because I can watch. I got nothing but time. I can watch.
I'll just leave it in. I don't care. I don't care either. I tell you what, let's say the next 4 episodes.
Uh,
Because I was looking at this is that we were going to record and put out every other week.
okay.
So let's do 4 episodes. If that's too much, we'll adjust as needed.
No, we got it. Because I mean, we're not giving too much. We're giving enough highlights to where somebody can still get something from watching it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we will go forth and go from there. So go ahead. Anything you want to final thoughts? Anything you want to plug before we go?
Um, for you all, Joey said, that talking about touchstone, like just this monumental stuff, regardless of whether you've seen the show or not. I wanted to chime in there because he's absolutely correct. There are a couple shows that I haven't watched, but I'm familiar with because of what they've meant to the overall theme of television. I've never watched Seinfeld, but I know who the Soup Nazi is. I've never watched Friends, but I know about Pivot. And a lot of you who haven't watched Game of Thrones still know what the Red Wedding is. So, there are things, that just, transcend whether or not you're watching something. So yeah, we have to take those spoilers out because we know that they're coming, and still try and have a really good time watching it. So I'm glad that you're taking this journey with us. I hope that you'll rewatch. So hey, we just watched the first 2 episodes. Between now and the next one, we're going to be watching the next 4. So I hope that you join along with us and get into the conversation. Click that subscribe button, man. But no, if you want to hear me outside of this amazing venue, I can be found at a couple places, man. If you're still kicking it on YouTube, you can find my beautiful face on Hilarity by Default, some of their vintage episodes. Um, my voice, if you like that, I can put you to sleep. Classic Tokyo Smoke Show is still available, and season 2 of the Yeah I'm Hybro podcast is getting ready to premiere next month. So if you like my nonsense, and I promise you on the podcast, it's a little bit more serious, man. I am here for it. And you get to hear me on the Joey Harris show. That last episode we did, man, this whole cake come fast enough, baby. That was a great piece of work, man. That's some awesome content. So, as always, Joey, man, thank you for being a part of this life, man. Big TJ is a big fan of yours, bro. Keep on shining.
Thank you much, man. I appreciate that. Like and subscribe and share and all of that. I am trying to put out new content every week. I took the last 2.5 months of 2021 off. I talked about that in the first video of 2022 because I was burned out and I was trying to recover from the long-term effects of COVID. But I had this in mind. I said it to TJ probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and maybe a month ago now. I'm like, look, I want to do this. I want you to do it with me. So it's an offshoot of the regular. It'll be on the regular YouTube channel, but it's an offshoot of that. It's what we're watching, and we're starting with the Sopranos. After we do that, we'll go on to other things. We go on to movies as well. This you can go anywhere.
If you have
With
suggestions, comment them below.
absolutely, absolutely, we can do different things. I'm making time. I didn't think it was possible to make time. You can't make more time, but you can make time in your your schedule. And that's what I'm doing, because, work is work.
Always.
Work is work, and life is life, and it's about finding a balance between the two. But if you're into wrestling, every Wednesday night going into Thursday, so Thursday at midnight, the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show drops wherever you get your podcast. You want to hear more of me and TJ talking about different things, or just me talking by myself, or me talking with other guests. The Joey Harris Show drops every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. Usually, sometimes it's 10, but if you hit that refresh button, you'll either get a new episode or you'll get a classic episode. And I got enough classic episodes to not do an episode for about 5 years. So I'm good on content there, but I'm also putting out new content. Sometimes it's me and TJ talking about other forms of entertainment and things that we geek out over. Sometimes it's me talking with Nan Feebig. We talk about loving on some beef. Sometimes it's me talking with my friend Mary Johnson about a different form of tea, a different type of tea. Sometimes it's me and TJ talking about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not, and we both agreed that it was, because Hans Gruber didn't fall off of Nakatomi Plaza for that. And that was the entire month of December, folks. I just did the entire month of December. So if you like that, I also did a deep dive with my friend Kendall. We both have had gastric bypass surgery, calling You Can't Quit Food, which is true. If you're an alcoholic, you can quit alcohol. It's hard, but you can quit it. If you're a drug addict, you can quit drugs. It's very difficult, but you can do it. You can't quit food.
You can't quit food. You need it to live.
And so I've got more of that coming up. I have my 2022 guest list, or guest want list. It's a long list. So there'll be more of that, as well as some classic episodes. Now reliving the final episodes, the final about 2 months of the old Comedy Shack from the Go Radio Network.
Classics.
And going into the first episodes of the Joey Harris Show, the first version itself. So there's all of that wherever you find your fine podcasts. And like TJ said, if you have any suggestions for stuff that we can watch, we are always open to that. Feel free to put them in the comments. Thank you all so much. We will see you next time.